So the focus of today's seminar is top tips to improve your paid social marketing. We always put some, what I say is we always put some questions out on LinkedIn and actual questions out to ex-attendees in terms of what kind of topics I want to achieve. And what came back quite heavily is like a lot of people are spending more time on social media, spending a lot more time spending ad spend on social media, either for their clients or for themselves as businesses. So what we've put together is some top tips. But before I'm going to do that, I'm just going to set the scene a little. So the rise of social media, why is it so important and why are we giving tips to businesses? Because right now, social media exploded like a supernova. The average user spends about 2.5 hours per day across various social platforms. That is a lot of time in a day when you consider, we have 24 hours a day. We spend a lot of that time sleeping, spend a lot of that time working. Some of us work 9 to 5. And then you consider that your evenings really built up of, 4 or 5 hours. You're using potentially nearly half of that spare time on social media. It's actually quite interesting to see that. We saw some stats last year, just after the pandemic, 300 million people subscribed or joined social media platforms after the pandemic, globally, worldwide. And there isn't a reason for that because they were stuck at home. The only way for them to communicate was being on social media. So that's why social media is on the rise. So why is it going in popularity and why should we care? For 2 key reasons. It's free. It costs the user nothing to be part of social media. They get free content, they get to communicate with their friends, they get information, they get to view video content and engage in a way that they've never done before, and it costs them nothing, which is why it's so popular as a platform, no matter which platform you're on. Plus, it's universal. According to our world data, out of the 7.7 billion people in the world, at least 3.5 billion people are online. And it gives you access to over, nearly half the population of the world. If you have plans to be national or international, even at a local level, there's a good chance that you can target your audience specifically on social media because there's that so many people sharing content, being on there, and that's because it's free. So, social media has risen for those 2 key reasons, but the key element which we're going to go through today is what are the top tips that you can use to get ahead. And there's 5 key ones that I'm going to share and go into a lot of detail with. So the first one is quality score. Not many of you might have heard of this, but quality score is a metric that Google uses, which rates the quality of the relevance of the keywords to PPC ads. Facebook does the same thing, but in a different way, but they call it relevancy score. Twitter calls theirs quality adjusted bid. So whatever you want to call it, quality score, we generally call it quality score, even though it's called relevancy score, just to kind of aggregate the term. So if someone says, what's your quality score on Facebook, they really mean the relevancy score, or if it's Twitter, it's quality adjusted bid by a different platform. It's one of the most crucial metrics you can have. The better your quality score, the better your campaign will perform. And it all comes down to one specific element: content. If your quality score is low, you're not going to get enough ad impression share, which means your ad's not going to deliver as much to the potential target audience you've built out. But secondly, if your quality score is high, you're going to get more ad impression share. So you're going to achieve a lower cost per click, and you can achieve more conversions and conversion actions based on how you set your campaign up. So the key metric when you're in platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. And remember, anything you do on Facebook is the same for Instagram. So anyone who is thinking, well, what about Instagram? Instagram and Facebook is the same platform. It's called Facebook Business Manager in the back end as an agency, how we manage it. But when you do your targeting and a setup in your ads, the only difference what it comes down to is doing Instagram ads is you select Instagram or don't select Instagram as a placement within the platform. And it all comes down to quality score. It's the most important metric we as an agency look at, which is why it's the number 1 tip I've given you. And why do we look at it? Because anything of 7 and above is great. If we have ads performing at 6 or below, we're looking at amending them or changing them. If there's ads at 7 or above, we're trying to replicate them with new types of content and new types of ads to replicate that performance. Because do consider with all types of content, there will be an element of fatigue where your ads will fall off in terms of performance after a while. So don't just think that once you've got an ad performing at a relevancy score of 8, 9, or if you're lucky enough to hit 10, that's it. It's going to continue performing at that. Remember, there's a lot of people on social media that want to see fresh new content. If they've seen your ad enough times, it's just going to become part of their feed and they're just going to skip over it. So you've got to continually come up with that. And the best way you can do that is by promoting your best content and working on that content. And how do you do that? There's 4 key ways to do that in terms of creating engaging content. So quality score is directly impacted by your content. The better your content, the better your quality score. The better your quality score, the better your campaigns perform. So what kind of content should you be creating then to improve that quality score overall? Well, the one is user-generated content. If you're engaging and posting organically on your pages, or you've had someone come onto your page and show pictures of a product you're selling or reviewed your business in some kind of way, then you should be using that content as part of your paid activity. And there's nothing stopping you from using that content, because essentially all you're doing is taking what someone said about you or how they've engaged with you within your business and putting that online. There's a few people who will work for agencies that will probably agree that actually user-generated content can be the best. Nothing beats it in terms of your own customers creating content for you through engagements and reviews. Another one is educational content. Right now, we've seen a significant consumer shift between wanting to be sold to wanting to relate and be informed. And if you've looked at any of our previous digital trends from last year to this year in terms of post-COVID impact, in terms of content, again, do have a look about older bite-sized events or listen to some of our podcasts, you know that focusing on education and adding value is key to your customers' purchase journey. When I say education is, one things we're trying to do, because some businesses in here will be B2B, is try and think what the pain points are that your potential customers have, and try and educate them in terms of how your product or your solution helps resolve that issue. Don't just go for, let's say, if you're a lead gen organization, saying we can get you 100 leads a month. They're not going to really believe that. They want to be educated in terms of, how you're going to generate quality leads for them. Use that kind of approach. Authenticity. So that kind of links to it in terms of the educational content is, don't create content for the sake of it just because you feel like it's going to drive, traffic. Build your brand, be authentic to it. Just an example here at Bobble, we focus on education. We do not sell in any capacity on our website. There's no kind of like sales kind of messages. It's all about learn more, have videos. Here's the Bobble bite-sized events that we do, and we share them across social media. If you ever visit our social posts or you look at some of our paid ads, if you can go on stuff like Facebook ads library to see, or go into LinkedIn and look at the ads tab, you'll see that everything we do is focused on education and authenticity of us giving our experience, and not actually saying come work with us because we're a great SEO agency. It's no, have a look at the work we're delivering for clients in this sector, or here's what Core Web Vitals means, which is a new Google update coming up in the next few months. So authenticity is key. Create content that your audience will kind of relate to. And then finally, video and graphics. Video is where social media is headed. You just got to look at platforms like TikTok. Visual references are key to capturing your audience's attention, and focus on your unique selling point. What separates you out from your competition? Make sure you have a specific call to action to encourage them to learn more, or book onto a demo, or inquire how you could potentially help, or request a call back. More and more traffic is being delivered to websites now through video content than any other format. And don't just think video is expensive, because you can turn graphics into a small animated video using platforms like Canva or free video editing tools. So these are 4 types of engaging content you can create. And the importance of that we'll get to comes down to A/B testing, but that's point 4, which I'll mention in a second. The third tip I'm going to give you is building custom audiences. Now, some of these you might be aware of, but there's other ones in here that are quick nimbles that you might not be aware of. So when you go into platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can target people by their behaviors or their interests or their demographics. So if you target people by their behaviors, this is basically stuff that your potential customers are interested in. So they're interested in your stuff. So if you're selling, merchandise related to Marvel, they've shown they're interested into gaming, some kind of Marvel comics kind of related topics. And you can type that into your audience targeting. Then you've got remarketing, which is essentially is the people who have been onto your website because you've driven them there, and you're saying to either whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, you've got a pixel on site saying, I want to retarget people that have been to my site that haven't bought a product or haven't completed a contact us form from a B2B perspective. So it's a very, very good audience to build, but there's other things you can do. Then if you're on platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook, demographic targeting is key. You might want to focus on people who can afford your stuff. So you might look at, targeting people by their income or targeting people by their age. So people that have disposable income to spend. You might target by gender. You might target by where they live. So you might want to target, more affluent areas around UK. You might want to target specific city centers. You can target by their job titles, so you could target by job seniority specifically. They could be a business owner, they could be a CEO, they could be a director level. Especially on LinkedIn, you can break your audience down by much, much different segments. And then the most important one is lookalikes. And I'm very surprised when I see a lot of clients not doing this. Is if you're already a company that's running, or you're an agency and you've got clients that have converted customers, you should be using that existing data. So essentially, lookalikes is taking your existing client email data list, uploading them to platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, even Google's if you want, and telling that platform saying, here's the people who have bought my product or signed up to my service. Can you profile people that match their profiles online across Facebook and LinkedIn through different things, like it could be their job titles, it could be the type of company or industry they're in, and find me new customers. That's why I've kind of got that little graphic on the right. Take existing customers, upload an email list of them, and find new customers. What it means is you reduce your potential spend in terms of having to focus on behavior or demographic targeting. You're just basically saying to the likes of Facebook and LinkedIn, find me more people like this because they bought my product, based on what their characteristics are, their interests, their likes, all these things around their demographics and behaviors we've already mentioned, and find me more customers like that because they're more likely to convert on my website. And you can do that all by uploading an email list. And after, a few hours, or if you're on LinkedIn, it takes 48 hours, it creates a lookalike audience for you. Then you got almost like a hybrid combo of lookalike and retargeting. And you can do this specifically on Facebook only for now. And I think this is brilliant, because if you're driving a lot of traffic to your site through different social platforms, through Google, you might be driving a lot of activity for your organic search, or you might just get a lot of traffic to your site in general. Then what you can do is, without uploading an email list, you can place a pixel on site and tell Facebook, I want to target other people that have a Facebook profile that matches people that have been to my website. It's not been around for too long. It's been around for a couple of years, this kind of lookalike retargeting combo. And you can say, I want to match just 1%, so be very narrow, or be quite broad and go up to 10%. We recommend you do 1% and 2% as a test. And compare the two. Anything we feel beyond 3% as a match rate just tends to be, too broad. But what you find is, even at 1%, you can find up to 250,000 people in the UK as a lookalike, specific audience that's similar to what they're doing and convert extremely, extremely well. So these are 5 key, custom audience builds we advise and give tips on for you to consider. A/B testing. A lot of clients and people say, well, what do we do as an agency to help identify, to get better results for our clients? And the main thing we do is A/B testing ads. Once you already know who your customers are, and you can use platforms like Google Analytics to see who's visiting your website, their age, their demographics, their genders, where they're coming from, which gives you a kind of an idea of who it is. You can look at existing customer data. You need to start A/B testing. So if you go back to the point 2 where we talked about different types of engaging content, A/B testing is essentially running 2 different types of elements to do different audiences. What you can do is you can A/B test 2 audiences. So in terms of who you're targeting, for one client, we've got a furniture client. We're A/B testing female audiences only against males, and then a combination of the 2 to see what works best. So what we do is we run the same ads to each one, but we A/B test the audiences by making, slight minute changes in terms of their demographics to see how does the female audience perform against the male, or do they perform better together. And the data you get from that is really, really important because it helps you identify who your ideal customers are and where you can get the better performance from. Then you need to look at stuff like A/B testing your actual creative. Should you be looking at A/B testing different kind of messages? We give, up to 4 different examples of types of content you should be doing. You need to be A/B testing, different kind of call to actions and different kind of, engaging content to see what works best for you and your business, that drives that call to action, drives those contact us on your website, drives those sales for your website. Writing multiple copy is key for your ads. So if you're doing reviews, don't just use the same review again, use different reviews to create, different elements to see how a short review over a well-written review, see how they compare against the two. And, A/B test different USPs, because a lot of businesses, a lot of products you push in will have more than one unique selling point, and A/B test different product ranges. So for one of our clients, that is another furniture client, which is beds. They do divan beds, but they've got Moscow divan beds, they've got Prague divan beds. And what we do is we A/B test the different variations of divan beds to see which one performs better. And if one is more attractive, that drives people to site and converts, we optimize towards that ad. But the only way we know that ad works better is because we've done the A/B testing in between. And if you go into platforms like Facebook, you can create A/B test campaigns specifically to allow you to do that, to split the budget equally, to tell you which one's performing best. And then the 5th one, report and analyze. If it isn't measured, it can't be improved. So everything we've talked about requires you to measure and report on it constantly. You need to be using tools like Google Analytics to see, if you're running multiple social channels, actually where is that traffic coming from, and who, which social platform is it coming from. You need to be looking at specific metrics within the platform, like quality score, the number of conversions or leads being driven, the clicks, the bounce rate, the engagement rate in terms of like click-through rate from the ad to the website. All these metrics, and when they're very, very positive, tells you which audiences and which ad placements are working really, really well to allow you to optimize to get the best out of the platform. Remember, platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter all work on algorithms. So you just need to give them the basics, but A/B test, and the actual algorithm does most of the work for you. But for the algorithm to work in your favor, you need to be doing all these elements we've just discussed. And you need to be looking at the analytics of that, looking at the different metrics to see what's working and what's not working, to allow you to optimize so the algorithm works for you and your business and in your favor. That kind of brings together the top 5 key tips. Like I said, it's a 15-minute chat. I'm just going to come out of the presentation and open it up to any questions that someone might have. So feel free to come off mute and ask any questions.
Mine's not really a question, but it's more of a case in point, because Manny's been helping us with our website and our content creation to give us an idea of what we should do. And following his advice, following these same kind of steps, we went from 10 visits a month to, as in the last 30 days, we had about 350 visits. And changing the way that your social channels work and making content tailoring towards your target audience makes a heck of a difference. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, well, thanks, Simon. But I guess that just kind of really brings home the point around, testing different types of content, playing with different types of content overall. So it's really important that you do that testing. And I know, the likes of, Lorna, Anna, Tom, all of you, and Jonathan, anyone who kind of runs an agency will know how important it is to kind of do that element. But it all comes down to not just A/B testing the content, but A/B testing the audiences. And the number one metric we look at is quality score, which is why it's the first tip. The better your quality score, the better the algorithm and the actual campaign is going to work for you, because the quality score looks at your audience against your content and who you're reaching out to and how well they're engaging with that actual ad and product. Anything above 7 is fantastic, is good. If you get 10, great. But anything below that, that means you need to start testing different variations of the message, different variations of the products within that, or different call to actions, and start making changes. And then again, reviewing the quality score again to see how that improves your overall audience. If the quality score stays the same, then that's when you need to start going back a stage from ad to ad group and start looking at, well, are we targeting the right customers? And start breaking that down into different testing. Any other questions? That means I even did a fantastic job in explaining it. But this presentation will be shared as a PDF. Sorry, Jonathan, do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, Manny. I was just going to ask, it's been a bit of a one-man band and trying to work my way sort of through LinkedIn, use LinkedIn as much as possible. It's not, I know everybody else is using it at the moment, so it's still tough out there to actually, one, I think, get people to connect to you, but get any sort of conversation going. And just as an example, I won some business recently at a solicitor's in Leeds, and if then I sort of look at that person that I dealt with there, is there a way to sort of look at people with the same profile, etc., on LinkedIn and just replicate that, you know, or try to replicate that?
Yeah, you can. So there's two ways. So the best thing about LinkedIn right now is where Facebook was 4 or 5 years ago in terms of organic reach, whereas Facebook is now paid to play. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. And you can really use the search tool to look for people with particular job titles or particular, you know, and you can follow particular hashtags that they might follow. So if you know someone who is very, very engaged in that role and you want to target more people, then look at the hashtags they use in their industry to get more noise out there and see how many other people follow it. That's just from an organic point of view. From a paid perspective within LinkedIn, we talked about demographic targeting. In LinkedIn, you can, this is why a lot of people use it from a B2B perspective, is you can go into the minute detail you want. So if you know the job title of the person you're dealing with, you can actually put that job title in and it'll tell you potential audience size within the UK or within a particular, you know, city region of how many other people have that job title. It will then recommend to you other relevant job titles and other variations for that. So for example, if you've got a financial director, it will then say head of finance. It will say, you know, finance manager or CFO, and come up with different recommendations. So if you know that's the job title, then you need to be then looking at, well, what other job titles are relevant to that at that level? You can then just say people that work in finance or have skills in finance, but a job seniority of basically director or above, because they're the decision makers within the organization. So you can go in and build campaigns. LinkedIn is very expensive, so your CPC can be extremely high. A lot of our clients use it from a lead gen perspective, but we also use it from an in-mail perspective as well to create conversation. And you can still add a lead form on at the end of that in-mail to create a conversation with someone. So we did actually do a bite-sized talk where I've done a live demo of setting up a LinkedIn campaign and how you break that down from setting up a campaign, building out an audience, to building different kind of ad groups. So do have a look at our historical bite-sized videos on YouTube and on our website. And if you want the presentation, I can send that over to you.